Hello everyone, today we have an absolute menace of a deck. It is going to be the return of Galactus. Galactus is something that I really enjoyed playing back in its prime. It was a really fun play line. It's not necessarily fun to play against, but apparently that's my MO. I like junk decks, I like mill decks, and I enjoyed Galactus a fair amount. And today we are going to return Galactus to his former glory, at least a little bit. So the most important thing to note about this deck before I dive into any kind of explanation is that you're not going to have a 60% win rate. You're not going to have an upper 50% win rate, a 70% win rate. Like I typically like to have the decks that I showcase be pushing around 60% or higher over a decent sample size before I feature them. This one is going to be closer to around 52 or so % win rate. And that's because you can get some really big cube gains out of it. A lot of times the opponent is going to either misjudge your Galactus play. People have kind of maybe forgotten the glory days of Galactus, and so they're more likely to stay into certain conditions. I had a load of 4 and 8 cube matches, which is insane for Galactus. And so even though the deck only had around a 52 to 53% win rate for me, I averaged 1.48 cubes per game. That is over a sample size of 21, which is a decent size, but it's not huge either. But it is definitely a fun list. Anytime I'm able to return and play Galactus and really focus on wanting to play Galactus, not as just a surprise play, but more so as a direct strategy to try to find that way to win, it is going to be a good day. And so this deck is an absolute menace. I didn't create this one myself. I want to give credit, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to disclose who created it, so I'll let you guys just ponder that amongst yourselves. But the deck is an absolute blast. If you like OG Galactus, this is going to be one that is right up your alley. And if you haven't already checked out my video on demand channel, that's where I do dual streaming when I'm live on Twitch. I also am going to be posting some longer deck highlights that I wouldn't typically post on this channel so that you guys can get some more content, but it's going to be posted over there so that those that want a little bit more specific of a format can make sure that they are locked in here. That'll be our new cards, our updates, and then any really cool brews that I find along the way. We'll be able to have a little bit looser restrictions on that other channel, and the gameplay will be a little bit longer. So I'll be able to do a lot more footage, a little bit lighter on the editing. So if you like long form stuff, definitely jump over there. I'll leave a link in the description below. And then if you could subscribe over there, we're getting really close to that 1,000 milestone of the subs on that channel. And I would appreciate your help in being able to reach that. So as far as the deck for today goes, this is a very much focused on Galactus deck. Galactus, and then how do we win from there? We have a lot of really cool ways to push early initiative. So Martyr. Martyr is a card that isn't really ever played, but is so much of value here. Being able to drop Martyr to gain that early initiative into a turn 3 wave, into a turn 4 Galactus, can be the difference between getting it down and completely losing and having no chance of winning. And so Martyr offers a lot of really cool utility in this build. We can also drop Martyr into a Killmonger to reduce our death, to bump up our null. We can drop it into the Venom, and that is going to give us a better null, a bigger Venom, and just we don't have to worry so much about Martyr being that card that jumps to a lane, because ideally we're only going to have one lane for it to be in at the end of the game anyways, which is such a big thing. We have X23, Electro, and Wave as our ramp tools. Being able to get a turn 4 or turn 5 Galactus down, that way we can position ourselves to do a death plus an Alliance, a death plus a null, or whatever we need to on that last turn to find that way to win can be so pivotal. We have to have the ramp components. And then another card that I really like in this deck is Blink. Blink gives us another unique way to rotate into either our bigger pieces or to rotate into Galactus. And so you can position your cards with that in mind, depending on what you've drawn. Keep track or use a deck tracker to figure out what cards are left in your deck, and then use Blink intentionally whenever you can get a good rotation out of it. And otherwise, we're looking for that last turn power play. So we could do a Destroyer, which would be able to drop our Electro off. That way we can play a couple of turns on that last turn. It gives us a bigger null and a cheaper death. We can do a last turn Alliance alongside the Galactus play, or sometimes if it doesn't go our way, sometimes we're going to do Alliance into a lane and then death in another, with all 3 lanes on the board to try to still pressure a way to win. We have Null, which gets absolutely absurd in this deck. And so if you happen to get a turn 4 Galactus and you had extra energy because of like an X23, you can then do a Null on 5 into an Alliance on 6, and there's just nothing that they're going to be able to do to stop you. And so I had an absolute blast. Huge cube gains, huge cube equity out of a deck that typically isn't going to be pushing incredibly high win rates. And so we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. Thank you guys as always for being here. I hope you guys enjoy. The New York location. We're going to rip away all of the other cards, discount our death dramatically, and then we can always do on the last turn Goliath and Martyr. And that is a beautiful snap. Since we have initiative, this is going to end up getting really big really quickly. The Goliath is such a good card in that Galactus follow-up. We're not going to be able to do the death, unfortunately, but we're going to be able to have a significant amount of luck. And so if this was something like Jane Foster, I am so sorry. It is not going to happen for you, my friend. And so let's see how big that one was. I think it was.
Rest in peace.
I think we can check. It was Jane Foster's. Super unfortunate. But Jane Foster is now gone. And we have the Goliath, the Martyr. Martyr's not going to be able to jump to a lane that loses for us because there's no other lanes to jump to. And then even if they have Iron Man, Mystique, it won't matter because we have the Goliath coming in. They do stick it out for that final turn. Very interesting. But the null is going to be null and void from the Goliath. We will take the 8 cubes. And the one good thing that I found about this Galactus deck is that people have forgotten how big and how much range a Goliath deck can have after that one comes off. And so a lot more people are willing to stay after you get the Goliath play versus before it'd be an instant retreat. So we will gladly take this. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Zero. The first location is Vormir, which is looking beautiful for an Electro. We have Null in hand, we have Martyr in hand, which is great as a follow-up to a Galactus play. It's also decent with like Martyr into Venom so that you're not going to lose the game from that Martyr being able to move around the board. I like any excuse we can have to play the Martyr. We also get Wave, but I think we're going to go Electro Destroy instead. We could always Wave over here, get an extra energy, but I think what makes the most sense is Electro in the left to get destroyed. It's not going to get destroyed because their magic comes down first. Super unfortunate. So we're going to be throwing a Venom next turn instead. It's fine. Fine. We're not too upset about it. A Blink would be great, but no such luck. Let's go a Venom. We're not going to be able to eat the Martyr anymore, unfortunately. But at least we have that backup way to get rid of Electro. Let's see it from here. So the Dracula comes down. Ooh, it's a Dracula discard deck. Interesting. So Castle Blackstone actually becomes kind of tough to win with just like an Goliath. Maybe we could win with like a Death plus a Null. We know that they typically don't have very many counter cards in their deck. I'm going to go ahead and YOLO the Galactus into Castle Blackstone. And then we're hoping that they don't play for it. We know that they have Apocalypse already, but what else are they realistically going to play? Let's go Galactus to the right, and then we can send from there. That is a Dakin, so it's going to be a tie lane in the right, unfortunately. So it is going to continue going to turn 7 here, but we're not quite going to be able to get the Galactus to trigger, which is super unfortunate, but it is what it is. All right, so with this, we have enough energy for 2 cards of anything. So we can play any 2 cards on the final turn, because we're going to have 8 energy going in because of our Electro, because of X-23 being destroyed. We're going to have just a little bit of extra reach on it. We could always do Goliath to the left. I think that's going to be a pretty big one for us. And then maybe we look to do Death into mid. No, it's not quite going to be low enough. We could Blink into the Destroyer. Blink into Destroyer. Into like Martyr. Into Goliath left. Or instead of Goliath, we could look to push for like a Null. But I do like the Goliath left, giving us that protection over there. The Blink adds some extra power as well. So we didn't get Galactus to go down, but I do think we still have a shot here. And so Blink pulling out the 16 power Destroyer mid to give us a little bit of pressure there. One more turn, we could have had almost a free death, a huge Null, but we could have played the 31 power Null, I suppose. But we'll see how it goes. The Muramasa Shard on the right, the Arnhem Zola destroying the Muramasa Shard, going over to the left, and then whatever is under that Invisible Woman is going to be not effective And so no such luck with the Killmonger play. We barely hold out that left lane, but we hold down mid incredibly well. It looks like we probably could have survived with just the Destroyer and then like a Null to the left. Even if Killmonger had gone off, it would have been perfectly fine. We will take the 2. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Splat. The first location is Sewer System, and so a couple of negative cards over there. They do have a 0 dropping into the right lane, and then Cloning Vats could be interesting. We do have Wave to play on 3. If we draw Galactus, we could use that as a way to potentially get that play down. If not, we have Blink to potentially rotate into it as well. And so the zeroed out Ebony Maw is really big here. The Martyr, we do have Killmonger, of course, to be able to clean up some of those really big high power 1 costs that they're dropping. Unless they end up going with like an armor and then duplicating it and playing it here as well, we'll get a decent little bump. Now, we have a 1 out of 6 chance to draw into Galactus next turn. I almost think it becomes Wave to the left into a Blink next turn. But then we'll be really sad if we draw into the card that we need. I think that's our best line. Our best chance to potential... Ooh, wait. All right, let's go Martyr into Killmonger. We do have the Wave coming down. I forgot that Lemuria was in fact a thing. And then Goose into the second Ebony Maw. We're going to copy up on the Killmonger because we don't want that to be lingering around. But Wave, they have the Moon Girl, so they doubled up on whatever they had in their hand. And then Killmonger's going to eat really nice here, discounting our death dramatically, all the way down to 3 immediately. And so it also clears up the board, so we have initiative here. And so drawing a Galactus would be a guaranteed play over here. Let's go with a Martyr into a Sir Galactus, which is going to give us the ability to, 1, play Martyr again next turn, but 2, it's going to make sure our death is cheap. Our Null is going to be a beautiful potential. We also have Eliath if we're afraid of them being able to do any of those big high impact last turn plays. So let's go ahead and lock this in. The Goose is not going to be impactful since we are able to have initiative going to this turn, but they skip to enable what, a double She-Hulk maybe? This could be She-Hulk shenanigans. They're only going to have 4 spaces to play here, and so they could be looking to do and a Shang-Chi counter, but it doesn't feel like that would be very likely. In our deck, we have X-23, Venom, and Null. So we could always go this line. Depending on what we think they're going to drop, we could switch out Martyr for either Null, which would be huge. Venom would be fine, X-23 would be fine, but I almost think instead of that, we go with this. It's going to be 12, 22, 27 power. They do have their Ebony Maw though. We need more than 27. 28. Let's go ahead and swing for the fences here. We're gonna need the lucky Martyr rotation. Into a Null is gonna be great. 1 out of 3 shot. Go ahead and send it. So the death, the Martyr, and then the Blink to switch the Martyr into the Null for us. Please and thank you. No, it's Venom, unfortunately. So Ebony Maw, Titania into Ebony Maw, and Titania. We'll take it. All right, next up we have Cypherpunk, and the first location is Bifrost. I'm going to go ahead and play X-23 into the Bifrost. They have a Martyr, which is interesting. You don't see Martyr all that often, but I am okay playing up against it. We do have Electro for 3, potentially a Blink rotation from there. But we'll see. We could also go ahead and play Martyr for maybe looking to push initiative against Cypherpunk, so maybe we can get our stuff down before they can. So like that blink rotation into Galactus. And then Invisible Woman. So that's going to be a guaranteed location for us to do a Galactus into, and into like the Alioth or something crazy. And so oh, this is rough. It's going to be rough stuff for them. We're going to do 4 Electros into Galactus mid before this can push anything, before they can stop us here. It's going to be a guaranteed Galactus. We're going to have just an absurd amount of extra energy, being able to do a blink rotation to dig for some of those key cards. Also, anything they hide here will end up getting Alioth on that last turn. That is our primary go-to play line. And so I can't see them skipping here. I just feel like it'd be a little bit, it'd be a difficult skip for sure. And so they skip, they play just Hulkbuster to the right, which is something that you don't see all that often. It's only going to end up being, what, 12 power? But I guess a 2-cost 12 power is nothing to scoff at, really. But with the Invisible Woman being that guaranteed Galactus lane, there's just, it's gonna be the day of reckoning for sure. They are going to kneel before Galactus. As we watch all of the Electros go off, we're gonna have an infinite amount of energy going to that final turn, more or less. And then we could always do like Killmonger blink rotation, get some really cool things going. Death is going to be free, or very close to free, if not completely free. Go ahead and go Galactus into mid. We're going to be able to get the extra 2 card draws. Ooh, into a Venom is beautiful. So we are looking at, of course, a free Death, a very big Null. So I think they may have a Null of their own. And so Alioth is going to be our best friend here. We're going to have to either push heavily for that potential rotation, hope to draw into it, but by drawing 2 cards in Asgard this turn, we should be able to almost guarantee that we either can flip into it or we draw into it right away. And so after that 60 power Venom in the right lane, we are going to make them kneel before Galactus. X23 bounces into mid, of course. Death is going to be free. And we're going to have just an absurd amount of energy. I would like to do Null next turn on 5 into Alioth on 6. That would be the ideal. Beautiful. We don't even need to draw anymore. We have the 182 power Null. Oh no, they didn't snap back. No way they did. Okay, well, this becomes a lot easier. So we have the Null here, our Alioth. It looks like we're probably going to swindle 8 cubes off of them as well, because I think they have a Null. And they're reliant on their Null being bigger than ours, and then maybe like a Shang-Chi. But Alioth is that stinkiest fart cloud that they ever could see. They do go ahead and retreat. All right, next up we have Yumi. And between you and me, we're going to try to steal some cubes off of them. The first location is the Abbey, and so it does look like they're going to get the extra draw there. Plus they have the Destroy on Nico, and so it's going to be really interesting to see what they end up going with. We have Electro, we have Wave, we have Galactus. And so I think we're going to play Wave to the left, try to Galactus over to the right on turn number 4. But it depends on what they play here. We have the potential for Null to get really big. And Alioth could be a really big counter on that last turn. But it just depends on what their play looks like. Because if this is a bounce deck with Beast, yeah, so it is a bounce deck. They're going to have quite a few resources. They have the ability to really spread that power very consistently. It makes it really hard to really gauge what that would be. They typically want to drop something like a Black Swan. On turn number 5, they have already beasted with just Nico, which is interesting. So let's go Wave into Full Send Galactus into Hala. There's a chance that maybe they don't play for Hala because they don't want their cards destroyed. And so I think that's actually an okay location for us going into turn number 4. So Hope Summers to the left, perfectly fine. Ooh, and we have initiative here. So it doesn't matter what they play. We are going to be able to get the guaranteed Galactos off. And this is going to be the equivalent of a Galactus Boomer Snap. We'll see if they stick it out. Because the biggest issue right now is that we don't have a big follow-up. Like we're only destroying maybe 2 cards depending on where they play. So 3 cards. And we'll be able to see what that destroyed card was from the in-game overlay. So let's see. And that one was Gwynpool, which is great for us, not so great for them. We could do something like X23 Killmonger, but that leaves us with only one spot. We could do X23 Venom. Victory. We'll take the 2-cube retreat. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Fat Jesus. And the first location is Asgard. We have Blink in our opening hand. We have Wave. We also have our Destroyer. We have a couple of good resources for early game. And so let's go ahead and skip on one. We have Daily Bugle coming in, giving us a copy of what they have in hand. Dr. Doom, interesting. If we can get Galactus down, Dr. Doom is not going to be great. So I think we go something like maybe Martyr into Wave, into potentially a Blink. That's going to make sure that it's going to make it easier for us to have initiative going into those last couple of turns, where we're trying to really get Galactus down. And so the Nexus is an interesting one. Let's go with, maybe it becomes Electro into Blink. Let's go Electro into Blink. If we unfortunately draw Galactus next turn, then we can always still go with Blink into that right lane to give us a better push to try to guarantee that we win mid with the Galactus. But we draw Null, so there is a chance, and we have initiative here, so there is a chance that this flips into Galactus and we take out the rest of the locations with just the Nexus. I feel like we should probably snap into it, because even if we don't, it's going to be either a Galactus, Alioth, or Death. All of those are fantastic. We will probably win Asgard, and so we'll get the additional card draw as well, so we can really start shifting things around to try to find that way to win. So let's go with the Blink rotation here. Martyr, I think, is such an interesting card, especially since we oftentimes are going to destroy it, but it gives you that early tempo that you definitely would like or need in a Galactus deck. And so we switch, and it is the Galactus. Hopefully they're not Galactose intolerant, because we are going to send it straight their way. And while the Nexus will stand in the right lane, that is really all that it's gonna. That's all that it's gonna be. It's all gonna stack in that middle location. And so Death, we could look to do this. That would bring things down to 4. Death would be 3. We wouldn't have extra energy on that last turn though, so we could also go Destroyer. But maybe Wave, Venom, depending on what we get. It does bring Null down to 4. And so maybe we can get some shifts from there. It also allows Null to be a little bit bigger because of the Venom consumption. So let's see what they go here. Armor. And so nothing is going to be able to be destroyed. And so... and I forgot, we did play Electro, so we can do 2 cards here. And so either Alioth plus Death, if we think they're going to go something like Rogue, which would potentially still annul. I think that's the safe play, right? That stops a Shadow King, that stops anything that they would typically do. Null is going to be more power, but I think Alioth here is going to be that big bring home factor. I think we're wanting to look for like that Rogue to steal the Null away. No, a Destroyer of their own that was copied from us, but we are able to go just a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and we will grab the 4 cubes. Always a pleasure, Fat Jesus, when we run into you. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Trooper, and we do start with Nexus in the left lane. So I'm going to go ahead and play Martyr over there. That gives us a lot of ability to have initiative going into those last couple of turns. And so then we can drop the good old Galactus into whichever lane we wanted to. And I actually think we're going to go ahead and snap into it. We have X23, so Galactus into Rickety Bridge doesn't look too bad, honestly. We could go X23 into Wave into Galactus here, and then that's going to allow us to keep an X23 on the board even after the end of the game. And so they go Punisher, and it's an Arisham deck. They go Punisher, so a lot of times they may not have like that armor to play or something similar, but they do have additional energy, which is going to be a little bit scary. But I'm thinking it may not matter too much. Let's go ahead and go Wave for 3, Galactus. I think we have to go Galactus into Rickety Bridge. Otherwise, it's going to be just a Hail Mary rotation, which I also think is kind of fun. But I think Rickety Bridge gives us a better chance to win. We are not going to go Galactus into Rickety Bridge, unfortunately, because we don't have we don't have the lead anymore. So let's go Galactus into Quantum Tunnel, and it's not going to go off, but unfortunate. I guess we could have held off. We could have done like a Killmonger into Rickety Bridge so that it got destroyed, but I don't know. We could rotate into Death into Destroyer is decent because it will allow us to get a better null going. We have X-23 that's going to jump onto the board, but definitely a little bit more unfortunate. So we could go, unless we have a way to clear the Rickety Bridge. I think our play becomes this. Electro, Killmonger, make sure that the Rickety Bridge will trigger and get rid of our Electro. Ooh, so the big Goliath coming down in the Nexus, but we dodge a big bullet here. And so we're going to have a pretty big turn. They could always have Absorbing Man to copy it. But, so X-23 pops into mid. It's going to get destroyed a second time. So we're going to have a lot of energy going to this last turn. Is that going to be 9? 9 energy going into the last turn of the game. Null is actually relatively small, unfortunately. I mean, it's not small, but it's not huge either. We could go something like this. And that's not a bad shout. Unless they re-trigger Goliath, that's going to give us like 40 power in this Nexus location. And let's do it before the Venom rotation. Let's do it after the Venom rotation, just in case we flip into Blink. I don't want Null to flip into Death, and then we would cry. We're going to try here. An Absorbing Man to the left might do it in for us. No, the Mockingbird, the Blade in middle, perfectly fine. The Silver Surfer into a rotation. The Punisher is on the board, but the Sentry gives them a -8, so it washes out in the end. Let's go Venom in the Quantum Tunnel. That's going to be that rotation, and we should be able to outpower them. Death is perfect, and then Null is going to come in at 39 power, 41 power after X-23 triggers, allowing us to get the cheeky win in the most awkward of games, but we were able to find a way to win. We will pull home the 4 cubes against the Arisham deck. The Stegron was too strong for us. We found a way to pull it out anyways. And that is where we're going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you guys as always for being here. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.